We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to kick it off with Wolfenstein Youngblood, which uh, Leigh and I have been playing through. And this is seems to be a bit of a contentious title that came out. It's a standalone game, but it's also kind of like a follow up to Wolfenstein 2, um, the New Colossus. If you remember with the first Machine Games Wolfenstein, the New Order, they put out the Old Blood DLC shortly after that, and that kind of like what this kind of is as well. It's a little bit more than a standard DLC, but it's also not a full-fledged game. And they took a couple of liberties with the way that they are handling it. For one, it's a primarily co-op experience. You're playing two daughters of BJ Blazkowicz. Uh, it's Sophie and Jessica, right? Those are the two names. They go by
I believe so.
Soph and Jess. That's how they refer to themselves as. And it takes place quite a while after the end of New Colossus. Anna was pregnant at the end of that game, and she had twins apparently, and they're now like really late teens, probably early 20s, and they've kind of grown up in a post-occupation United States. So the end of New Colossus led us into a time where the Nazis were kind of pushed out of the United States, and they've kind of grown up in, the Nazis are definitely there. They're in parts of the world, and they're definitely, part of, sneaking around in the United States, I'm sure, still, but largely it's a lot different than, total occupation. And they go on a little adventure to find their dad, BJ, who seemingly has disappeared in Paris, France, which is still occupied by the Nazis. And yeah, so it's set up as a co-op game, so you either play as Jess or Soph, and the game is a lot more. I guess you'd say the levels are more open because you're going to be replaying them over. There are different missions you get within the different zones that you're going to be fighting through. Like I said, you're going to be repeating some of the areas, revisiting them, and they're designed in that fashion to, you have like a hub area, and then you kind of branch off into more, more closed-in corridor shooters for where the actual missions are taking place. I think Leigh has spent a little bit more time with it than I have, so I'm going to let him give his thoughts on it, and then I'll chime in with my thoughts.
Well, it depends on what side of the fence you sit on, whether it's a dud or not. It's been quite divisive because it's changed as much as it's kept from the machine games, and sometimes nodding back even further. I mean, you could. The story's a little thin. It has to be said, but it's arguable to say that the real hook has never really been the story of Wolfenstein. It's always been that chunky gunplay. That's still there. The core of Wolfenstein, I think, is still there. It does borrow a little bit from, people call it open world, but it's more like, and they say it's like a callback to other sort of go to your hub and then go out, but it's more of a callback to actually an older Wolfenstein, which was, what was the Raven Games one? When was that? 2009?
Yeah, it was quite a while ago. Actually, when I logged into Youngblood a couple of days ago, they had a little message on there about the anniversary of it.
Yeah.
I never played that one though.
Oh, that's quite interesting. You can actually go between. That really doubled down on kind of the supernatural element, because you had a strange, because obviously the Nazis are dealing with kind of black magic and stuff, and you can go to an alternate dimension within your gunfights and stuff like that. Quite cool. That's a different game. Should we not talk about that one?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if there's comparisons to it, then sure.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
was
I mean,
considered
like,
open world, but you could it's literally go into a sewer and kind of travel whichever direction you'd like to go to get. It's
yeah,
much
yeah,
more open than something.
I consider open world the opposite of linear, whereas like all the other Wolfenstein, like New Order and New
Mm,
Colossus, they were you had your hub, but when you loaded
mm,
into a mission, it was a linear mission. You had
mm,
some choices around stealth and approaching it, but by and
mm,
large, it was a um,
mm,
linear zone. Where this is, you load into the New Berlin, or
mm.
is that what they call it, New Berlin?
I
You
believe
load
so.
into the streets of Paris basically, and
Mm,
you can kind of just hang out there and just explore the streets there. There'll be little like random missions that'll pop up, like random
mm,
generation stuff. Learn the secret paths through the city, because there are like alternate, like substantially alternate paths that you can take, not just like a
mm,
little vent shaft over here. There's a lot of buildings you can go into and find a completely different way to go through.
mm,
It should be noted that Arcane helped them with this game to a certain
yes.
extent, and that definitely
Mm,
shows in the level design. That
yeah.
is their pedigree is like the alternate route way. Like if you just recently played Prey, you'll know that there's actually a tutorial right at the beginning of it that tells you, hey, just because there's a door here that you need to hack doesn't mean that's the only way that that you have to go through here. Maybe there'll be a vent shaft up here, or secret over here. And that's a
Mm.
lot of what at least the open city aspect of it is drawing from.
And it keeps giving as you play the game because
Mm-hmm.
you could easily go into your first hub or out of your first your hub into your first kind of open area and explore all of those kind of arcane type upper tiers and think,
Mm-hmm.
well, I've seen all this now, but it doesn't. It keeps going because the further you get weapons that open doors that were previously locked, that
Right. Yeah.
laser beams. So you're always finding out stuff with your progression.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of meat in there if you want to. It might seem like, oh, you're just grinding in the same thing, but there's lots more things to explore, and it does reap rewards later on,
Mm-hmm.
especially with a quite generous kind of coin system, which people was worried because you can buy coins, can't you? You can actually pay for coins
Yeah. So there's like an
with real
upgrade
money.
currency.
But I feel like you don't need
Coins
it.
or what's
I
that?
honestly feel like you don't need to.
Need to what?
I think actually purchase extra actually purchase out of your own pocket coins to buy the upgrades and
Nah,
stuff.
can you actually buy those coins, or do you buy the cosmetic currency, which is like gold bars?
No, you can buy those coins. I believe that you can. It's kind of like
Okay.
lazy upgrades,
Yeah. Okay.
XP bus and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can buy that.
I always had a ton of coins. Really,
Yeah,
the only thing you can spend them on that make an impact on the game are the gun
mm.
upgrades. Um, and
Which is
those you kind of like find your guns, right. There's a lot of guns in the game,
mm,
but there's a lot of I think in a way there's a lot of crossover. um
mm,
like you don't need like four different machine guns, right? You want to pick the machine gun you think is the one you want, upgrade that, make
mm,
it, choose your, you know increase the damage, or
mm,
make it more of a stealth weapon if you want, and then maybe upgrade your shotgun and like one of your
mm.
sidearms or something like that. um
But that's all. It's also added to the different weapons are added to armor penetration, aren't they as well though?
yeah,
So a
that's
submachine gun won't do the same damage as the machine gun. So you do kind of need the two literally for the gameplay.
right. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a whole nother uh thing. So one of the bigger complaints I've seen about this game is that it um RPGifies the Wolfenstein. And by
Mm,
that they mean it puts a level on enemies and um, gives them health bars. And there's been a
mm,
lot of a lot of series that have switched over that. Assassin's Creed recently did it, um,
Mm.
and there are a number of other games that have done it. And
Mm.
one of the things that it also did was incorporate a armor system in which only certain weapons can damage certain types of armor. There's only two types of
Mm.
armor. There's like heavy armor and light armor, basically, and
Mm.
uh, so that means you have to make sure that you're using the right weapon at the right time. And I think I
Mm.
like that. That
Mm.
was something that say like Destiny did for a while, and
Mm.
they still kind of do to a certain extent. They did it more with like elemental effects, so like you had to use a fire weapon against a fire shield or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think it once you get used to it in this game,
Mm.
it's pretty good. I just
Mm.
wish that it was easier to read because I have a hard time sometimes telling the difference between what shield the person has that I'm shooting at,
Mm.
especially if
Yeah.
there's a lot of guys and they're far away. Because the only
Mm.
way it denotes it is a filled in white square or an empty white square. And small on a screen for far away, it can be hard to tell the difference between those two
Yeah.
icons. And it could have been
Mm.
as simple as like they just made it a different color or they made it a completely different shape. It would have made it a lot easier to discern um,
Mm.
that. But you also kind of get used to it as you fight the enemies. So like the foot soldier guys, they'll have the light armor, but the big hulking robot guys, they'll have the heavier armor. So you just gotta get used to that.
Mm.
And each
Yeah.
weapon has its own specialty. So like your submachine gun will be good against light armor, and then like your bigger assault rifle will be better against the heavy armor.
Mm. How far did you get, level wise? Player level
I
wise.
don't remember.
Oh.
I kind of I would that I if there's one complaint if there's another complaint I have against it is I feel like for the most part a lot of the RPG like upgrades and stuff weren't
Mm.
really doing anything for me. Um,
Mm.
there's some nice perks in there, but once I unlocked them, I was just kind of like putting points into things to get to another level as opposed to actually seeing like actually caring about what I was unlocking.
Yeah.
And I
I
find
found it
that
quite. Oh.
I find that to happen a lot in these kinds of like half RPGs that
Yeah.
are adding the layer on top of like a simplified version of something you'd find in a more complicated RPG.
Yeah. I found them quite underwhelming. The skill tree elements.
Yeah.
It looks fairly small. And it's pretty underwhelming for the first 19 levels. I'm about level 25 now.
Hmm.
So I think I did what absolutely nobody else did because they said it was too hard. You can't play it. It's too difficult to play, like for instance, single player. If you do
Hmm.
if you play the missions right, it's not that hard.
I had no problem playing this single player. I don't know what
No,
people are
no,
honestly talking about. I was
yeah,
actually finding it pretty easy at the beginning. Uh,
yeah,
I found that the AI of your sister AI isn't
mm,
great, but it gets the job done.
no,
Um, they work as a bit of a distraction, and they'll help you up if you need help.
no,
Usually, in my experience with some of these types of games,
mm,
she performed better than if it was an actual person
mm,
in
yeah,
control. And yeah, uh, I guess one of the other complaints was that enemies are bullet spongy, which is something I hear a lot with a game
mm,
that, if an enemy requires more than two shots, basically.
yeah,
There were a lot of people complaining about the Division 2 being bullet spongy, and I didn't think that was that bullet spongy either. Um,
no.
and
It make
yeah,
it makes me feel like people aren't actually they're just jumping in and playing it like Wolfenstein. They're just shooting everything and not taking into consideration that. I mean, obviously, when you get big enemies, it's tough because they're big enemies. They're supposed to be tough. like the big like 2-story enemies and stuff like that. Don't know if you got
Mm-hmm.
that far yet. They get massive. I
Yeah.
feel like people are just storming around, going on a killing spree, and not understanding why they're not taking everybody out. I don't think they're really maybe paying much. It's speculation, but I found it really easy to take people down. I can literally just whittle through people's armor, nobody's business. So I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
quite sure where this sponge thing is going on, unless you don't play it right and use the wrong weapon,
Well, yeah. Yeah.
and then it can be spongy.
If you're blasting the wrong a certain enemy
Yeah.
with the wrong type of gun, it will do almost no damage.
Yeah.
You'll shoot if you shoot one of those medium mech guys with the wrong gun.
Yeah.
It will absorb all of the damage. And yeah, and the other thing is like I actually prefer there to be like a health bar so I can see how much health there is left on each enemy. And the other Wolfenstein games, those big enemies, they were bullet sponges too. They were always like that. It's just they didn't show you the health bar, so you just had to guess how many times you had to pump one of those fire-breathing robot dogs with a shotgun until it died.
Yeah.
And the same thing
And
with
even then, even then, that takes lateral thinking. It's very easy to use the verticality, and essentially, because the complaint I see people saying is, you're playing it single player, for instance. Oh, it doesn't work because you can't hit the points. You can't have somebody distract the dog, and then kind of because you got to hit a spot on the top of its back to destroy it. And it's like, well, just take the high road, and you can do it anyway. But I don't know. I think people are trying to bulldoze through it and not really understanding the game, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I was very disappointed with the new Colossus.
Yeah.
I thought the story was not as great as the New Order, and I don't think the shooting felt particularly great. It felt very just kind of floaty and very light. And like not a lot of good feedback on when you were taking hits and stuff like that. And I feel like this, in terms of specifically that, improved drastically over New Colossus. I feel like the gunfights feel good, and the guns feel heavy, and the guns feel powerful, and I can tell when I'm taking hits, and I can tell whatever. It just feels better to shoot a gun in this game than it did in the previous game, and I need to go back to the New Order because I don't know whether or not my love of that game was more about how different it was, and like maybe it doesn't hold up as well as I think it does today, or if it was actually genuinely quite different than felt better and played better than the new Colossus did. I'd have to go back and check that out. But yeah, I went back and touched on New Colossus again just to make sure my memory of that was okay, and yeah, it was. It's I just don't like that game. Like, I don't like how it starts.
I'd have to agree with you on that because I didn't get to play Youngblood yet, but I did play Wolfenstein and then the New Order, and then tried to jump right into 2 because I got it at that deal around like Christmas time. And I just could not get into the new Colossus at all.
Yeah, there's just something. I don't like the tone. Like they were almost trying too hard to make it like a Quentin Tarantino movie or something like that.
Yeah.
Too much style. Too much like hitting your head over with all the emotional stuff. And it just none of it felt good, and like even like I feel like they even retread with like I mean, if you haven't played New Colossus, spoiler, you go to Venus, and it's played off as the exact same surprise as when you went to the moon in New Order, and it just didn't hit. And then I even felt like I actually liked when you went to the moon in New Order. I thought that was a cool twist on some of it, like the zero G and stuff like that. And I think what they did with Venus and New Colossus sucked. Like that was like one of the worst levels in that game. And at that point, I was just kind of like, when is this going to be over? Can I just get through this so I can see the end? And then the end wasn't really that great of a payoff either.
Yeah. I think my big problem with New Colossus was it lacked flow. For how rubbish the story was, there was a lot of story and a lot of cutscenes, but the cutscene to gameplay ratio seemed off. You'd have a 15-minute kind of cutscene with big dialogue and big story things, and 10-minute gameplay, and they rip you back out just as you're getting into the flow of the chunk of it. And it's a stop-start, very frustrating stop-start kind of. You just can't get into it. It's just tough. It's a tough sell.
Yeah.
It's a real tough game to play.
I also didn't like the submarine base as much as the base in the first game. I thought the submarine was incredibly complicated to navigate, like unnecessarily so. So like I just didn't end up spending much time there because I was like, I don't want to walk through these winding things to find this one person or whatever.
It's a very stuttery experience, but which you can't say about this. If there's one thing you can say about this, it gives you constant gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, there's some story stuff and there's a few cutscenes here and there, but it is mostly you literally choose a mission, you jump in and you're playing the game.
Story is the weakest element, definitely.
I think
the characters are a couple of meatheads. They're a couple of idiots. Let's be honest. They're charming sometimes, but they are idiots.
Yeah, I like them though. They were. It was like, It was like it's going for like an 80s vibe, and you felt that they were like like a couple of sisters and like an 80s buddy movie or something like that. And they're corny.
A couple of groin grabbers sort of thing.
They're corny and they're always like giving each other shit and stuff like that.
With like the animations in lifts and stuff, and they're fucking with each other.
That was pretty good.
But I mean, the characters are okay.
Yeah, I think the sisters are okay, and I think the way the story kind of wraps up and is going to lead into where the game's going to go. At least has me more interested in the story because it's at least different than where they left off with the New Colossus, which I didn't think was going anywhere interesting. So I'll be interested to see where they take it, and if they take any of these gameplay things and move them over into the next game, or if this was just a one-off test. It at least has gotten me more interested in what the next Wolfenstein will be. Whereas if it was just coming off New Colossus, I wouldn't have cared one bit about what Wolfenstein 3 was going to be.
The one thing I do think it doesn't have that Wolfenstein Wolfenstein 2 did, is a good antagonist. There's no real Frau Engel in this.
No.
It was awful. You desperately wanted to kill her.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like that in this, so you do miss that hook of getting to the last person.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
Yeah, I guess so. And then
I love killing her. Oh, it was great.
Well, yeah, and I don't know, that was kind of like where I started to fall off, was the way that they were villainizing her. Was like, this is turning into like a comic book character. Yeah. Like how many bad things can this person do? Yeah. Oh, now she's making fun of her overweight daughter and cutting off people's heads at the same time.
Yeah. So, would you? Because obviously this has kind of been a kind of a divisive thing. Would you recommend it? Do you think?
Yeah, probably
or
because
jump in later, or
I mean, it's a budget title, so it's only a few bucks. I mean, it's undoubtedly going to drop off even more shortly, I imagine.
Yeah.
So maybe wait for a good sale on it. But I think it's worth picking up and at least running through a big chunk of it.
Yeah, try it for yourself, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's there's enough there to be like, there's enough questions there to be like, make sure you're not just, being swayed by a bunch of people saying they don't like it when we do, and maybe you will too. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a relatively low risk proposition anyway. All right. So that is Wolfenstein Youngblood. Thank you for joining us on this very special episode of Voxel Viewpoint. If you'd like to hear or see more, please consider subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app, subscribing to us on YouTube, or visiting voxelvoice.com, where all of our great content comes together in one place. Also check out the Voxel Voice Facebook group, where you can join in on the discussion with a great, like-minded community.